Hey you guys, hello. Welcome to Melissa Valentine's Cozy Nursery. My name is Melissa if you're new here, and if you're not new, welcome. I have Noelle. This is my Noelle. This is the Teddy sculpt. She is a reborn baby creation by Natalie Fakebridge. And she is just adorable. She was my Christmas baby. So welcome you guys. Listen, I wanted to talk to you guys today about the psychology of adult doll collecting. You know, I want to provide food for thought on my channel. I want it to be purposeful, right? So I figured, why not? Let's discuss the psychology behind this. You know, we're adults, we collect dolls. There's nothing wrong with it. You know, some of us there's a stigma behind it. Some of us get judged for it. And, you know, what may help somebody may not help somebody else. You know, it's all subjective. You know, we all have different hobbies that we engage in. So as far as the dolls, you may have started collecting at different times and for different reasons. You know, some of you have collected dolls as a child and some have just started as an adult. And maybe you had some dolls as a child. I had dolls. I had some porcelain dolls. My grandma used to crochet and put it on like the dolls that you buy, like the plastic dolls you put the crocheted clothes on. So like, you know, maybe you had stuff like that, and all mine have been put away in the closet. I've got Cabbage Patch babies, you know, and I wasn't like a steady collector, but I saved a lot of my childhood stuff. And, you know, to be honest, I was actually chatting back and forth with Alice the other day, and we were like, man, wouldn't it be amazing if we actually saved some of our dolls from like the 80s and 90s? That would be awesome. So, you know, and if you've never collected before, maybe you are just starting your collection. Maybe this is something that you want to try out. You know, maybe this is something that you're watching YouTube videos and you're trying to debate what you want to do, what direction you want to take. Are you wanting to go all in and get the artist render dolls? Or maybe, just maybe you say, you know what, I'm just going to collect what I like. You know, it could be anything. Cause me, I collect, different dolls. Like I have my mostly reborn dolls. I went back into dolls, you know, from a child to an adult, because I like the artist rendered reborns. Now I will say I've had my fair share of Amazon and Temu and AliExpress, and I also collect Blythe dolls. So I know somebody wanted to see, hey with Alice, somebody wanted to see some of my Blythe dolls. So I will need to make a future video of that, and I plan on it. I mean, you know, so, you know, let's see, I wrote my notes down. You know, oh, some of us, I know, maybe you've become overwhelmed, or maybe, and started to sell some of your dolls or all of them, right? Because a lot of clutter can be overwhelming. So a lot of us take our hobby down to a reasonable, manageable, you know, level. You know, and maybe you're the type of person that you don't want the dolls. You just don't want the extra stuff, and you just want to watch videos, which is fine. That's fine. To each his own. So I love to learn, and, you know, I'm an education major, and part of my career is teaching and engaging with other people. And so when I was doing some research, I came across an article written this year, 2025. And the article was called "The Psychology of Collecting, Adult Doll Collecting, a Therapeutic Obsession." Now, I believe it was on antiquejournal.com or something like that. It's more of a collectibles journal. You know, I don't know much about it, But I thought it was interesting because it did involve some research, a study. So let's look at this study of psychological factors of adult doll collecting. In 2020, there were 2 researchers, and they were part of the Department of Psychology at the University of Toronto, in Scarborough. I don't know where that is, but I know where Toronto is, but Scarborough, you know. There were these 2 psychology, I guess, professors, researchers, and Angeli Ignacio and Gerald Kupchik. And they studied psychological factors of adults collecting baby dolls. And I said, oh, wow. Okay, this is like, so this was in 2020 that they did the study. But on the antique journal, it's like antiquecollectingjournal.com or something. I should have written it down and I did not. I'm sorry, my bad. But they ran this article about these 2 doing the research in 2020. So these 2 researchers, they did this experiment both online and in the lab. So what they did was, the purpose was to analyze strong and weak self-concepts, like your strong and weak self-identifiers about yourself in relation to playing with your dolls. So, you know, strong and weak, the psychology, strong and weak psychology of people, if that's a better way of explaining it. They called it analyzing strong and weak self-concepts. So both in the lab and online, they used a 10-question survey. And what they did was, it was a psychological survey to establish and decide on the subject's sense of self, where they were mentally in regards to themselves, like the insight of themselves and just what they thought of themselves, how they handled life, you know. It was only 10 questions. It was just like for them to get some type of baseline about that person. So the lab portion used undergrad students, and those students engaged in some sort of play with the dolls. So any type of like doll play. And these researchers observed and analyzed these undergrad students who played with the dolls. And they observed and everything. Now, something called factor analysis was used. And what they did with this factor analysis was to really determine the insecure sense of self with a subject that was participating, and the secure sense of self with a subject that was participating. Now, you guys, if I get too deep, I'm sorry, I'm a nerd. So they had to use different variables that, you know, regarding the data that they collected. So, you know, they considered, you know, the survey, what they seen in the survey in relation to the person, you know, things like that. So what the researchers found was the insecure sense of self were self-doubting, and they had unstable identities. This is through like overall the with the questions and the observing and the analyzing. The insecure sense of self were, in general, self-doubting and had unstable identities, the subjects. The secure subjects recognized their strengths and had higher tolerance for life's adverse effects. So, you know, maybe, you know, sometimes a lot of mental anguish or psychological trauma help us with the dolls. And some of us are, you know, have worse trauma than others. We all have different levels of life challenges and obstacles, right? And some of us handle life better than others. I mean, that's just what it is. Through growing up, what we experienced. And so a lot of the different things that people went through in life, you know, that applied here. So that's how they identified, you know, insecure and secure groups. So the researchers' hypothesis, their guess was twofold. That one, the doll collectors with a strong sense of self were not troubled by unsettled emotional issues, and it was reflected in their play. So they said, well, the people who are secure in themselves and have a healthy mindset, it's going to reflect, it's going to show when they play with these babies. The other thing that they hypothesized were that doll collectors with a weak sense of self would use the dolls to resolve any issues that they have, kind of like a self-therapy, right? Well, the data, their findings, right, after doing the survey and watching them and analyzing the subjects in the lab, the data showed, their findings, was that the secure sense of self used world building, which is basically creating a fictional world, right, that we play with our dolls, I could be grandma and the baby, or mama and the baby, or the sister, they use, or whatever the scenario may be, they're getting the doll, right? Whatever, I don't know. I don't necessarily always play creative play with my dolls. So, but the ones with a secure sense of self used doll play and created a fictional world as a means to be creative. So I may not put my babies in scenarios, but I will, dress them and cuddle them, and so but then the other data for the insecure sense of self, they found that these subjects used a lot of the same activities play to resolve internal tensions that they had, and they, as the scientists or the researchers have hypothesized, they engaged in self-therapy. And it was a way for them to find healing. Many of us use these reborns, the babies, dolls, what have you. Maybe you're a blind collector and you're just watching, or many people may use the dolls to help us heal. And in any portion of life, like I have been through some more struggles than others. I was through, 2 years ago, I was in I'm tired. I worked all night, but I was in a much worse mental state than I am now. So back then, the babies were more healing for me, right? Where right now, I'm in a better mental state. I'm feeling good about myself. I'm getting back into my other hobbies the past year. And, so I found healing in the babies at a time that I needed it. When I was going through a lot of mental traumas and stuff. But now I feel like more I can just play as like changing the babies, I could take the babies out in my, I guess you can call that creative play, So the secure sense of self, they use it as a creative outlet, where the insecure sense of self folks, they use it as self-therapy, right? They solved their problems through, play. Now, the one thing that scientists do know is collecting stimulates the pleasure center in the brain. And engaging in the self-therapy was expected within this research. That's why these researchers were like, that was one of the educated guesses that they thought they would find, was that it would promote self-therapy. So it's what they got, scientists know that the stimulating the pleasure center and self-therapy is a positive neurobiological force. It's something that's positive for our brains. It's part of our biology, and I guess that's why that, like I said, the researchers expected this. So a year later, so that research was done in 2020. A year later in 2021, the two researchers, Ignacio and Kupchik, those are last names, they did a paper that they wrote, a research paper, addressing the therapeutic benefits of adult doll collecting, adult doll play. They said that the connection between the collector and the doll depends on what the doll represents to the collector, not the doll itself. So many people may see our dolls and be like, oh, it's a doll. But think about the mother who lost their child, right? who's bereaved because their child. They're grieving because they lost a child. Think of the mother who cannot have children. You know, that doll, that baby may have a different value, or, you know, it's something different to each collector depending on the collector's situation. So an example that they gave was Miss Smith may express, now I changed the last name because, you know, I don't like to plagiarize. I'm a nerd. Miss Smith may express a fashion statement with her dolls. She'll dress the doll up and, you know, according to how she likes, right? Maybe the doll symbolizes Miss Smith as a well-dressed, confident woman. And who knows, maybe Miss Smith is too shy. Maybe she has fears to, you know, express herself, you know, through clothing, or maybe she has nowhere to go to express herself through fashion. So maybe she utilizes her baby doll to do what she's got to do. You know what I'm saying? Make her feel better. You know, I haven't been spending time with my babies as much because I have been engaging in other hobbies. 2 years ago, I did not engage in my other hobbies. I was too depressed. I spent a lot of time with my dolls. In fact, I was pumping out videos every single day, because I felt like it was like, kind of like an addiction in a way, because I wanted to be around the babies constantly, like constant. And I'm at a healthy mindset right now for myself at my baseline to have moderation with my hobbies. So I write a little, I research a little, I learn. I'm learning about video editing. Some videos will be more edited than others. You know, some videos I will do more or less. It just depends. It depends. You know, it takes time. The more I edit, the more time it takes. So I want to give my viewers something valuable. I want to give you guys something that you can walk away and say, yes, Melissa, yes, you know? So what do your dolls mean to you? What do you see that other people can't see? What's your perspective on your baby? How do you engage with your baby? You know, how do you, because me, yeah, people see them as just dolls, but I look at them as like precious little babies. Like, you know, I know they're not real. You know, they're not. They're inanimate objects. But to me, they're cute. They give you warm fuzzies, and you can engage with them. And they don't cry. They don't poop. They don't curse at you. They don't yell at you. You can find solace in it, you know? So tell me, what do you value in your babies? What do you see? Do you see, maybe you have a memorial baby. Maybe you see something that others don't see, you know? Maybe you see a baby that you were never able to have. Maybe you see a family member in your baby that, you know, maybe extended family, somebody that meant something to you that you no longer have a relationship with and that you wish you did. Maybe you see your own child that is living very much, you know, very well. Or maybe you use your babies as, you know, to help with healing and self-therapy. And you have a particular bond that nobody would understand. And that is fine. So you guys, I wanted to share this with you. I thought this would be an excellent topic. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. I appreciate you. You guys are all wonderful. I really appreciate your support. I appreciate you being here. Just by you watching my videos, you watching my videos here is engaging with me. You opened up the video, you watched it, and you, if you're still here, thank you. Thank you. Like my video, subscribe if you have not. I have a lot of viewers, and many of you are not subscribed. It's crazy. A lot of you are like, I'm not subscribed to her, but you'll watch me. So subscribe, because I know I got viewers that aren't subscribed. And share, you guys. Share the love. I want to thank you guys so much. And if you are interested, you guys, I still have merch. I am updating my merch. I still have Buy Me a Coffee. You guys, I don't push all that. But, you know, and then I do have videos that come out periodically for my memberships. And they're $4.99 a month. And they are going to be more of like, you know, what's going on behind the scenes and, you know, what's been going on, blah, 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 you know. But I would like to keep my public videos more, you know, soul nourishing, right? Mind nourishing. So, all right, you guys, I am going to get ready for bed. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. And as always, until next time.